All right, I call this special session of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This meeting is being conducted in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may watch this meeting by coming to City Hall, joining the Zoom webinar, visiting the city's YouTube channel, or tuning into Comcast Cable Channel 30 in city limits. To listen to this meeting by phone through the Zoom webinar, dial 1-253-215-8782, entering webinar ID 885-3957-9898 and passcode 397129. If you're calling in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. Due to the nature of this special session, there will be no opportunities for the public to speak during today's meeting. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya Etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. All right, tonight we will be hopefully appointing a new city council member to replace our recently resigned Angel Falconer. We'll be interviewing the 3 council member applicants. Each interview is scheduled for 30 minutes and candidates are in alphabetical order, which means that Josh Freeman will go first, Adam will go second, and Rebecca will go third. And then we will probably take a 10-minute recess after the interviews. So,
before we get started,
yeah,
I just want to make sure that in terms of equity, since Joshua can't be here in person, that we stick to 30 minutes, because I know sometimes having folks in person, we can tend to go longer, but in terms of equity, let's stick to 30 minutes if that's okay.
Sure. Fine with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
And do we have a order? We have 5 questions for everybody, but we have a, do we know how we're asking them, I guess?
Oh,
Are you asking them all? Are we rotating around and asking?
I have no strong feelings about that whatsoever. What's everybody else want to do?
I have no strong feelings about it either.
We're all apathetic.
Okay, I'll just ask the questions.
Okay.
All right. Well, then,
You want to set that for 30?
Sure.
Yeah.
good evening, Josh. Good to see you.
Good evening.
So we'll just get right to it so that we have plenty of time. What do you think are the 3 most important concerns facing Milwaukie?
Well, according to the City of Milwaukie Community Satisfaction Survey from 2020, homelessness and affordable housing were the top issues residents wanted addressed. I believe this remains a major concern with our residents today. Experts generally say that the maximum a family should pay for housing is about 30% of their income. The growth rates in household income aren't keeping up with home prices and rent for most families. So I would say homelessness and affordable housing. The other 2 areas I would say is supporting families and small businesses who have been struggling from the effects of COVID-19. And the 3rd item I would say, just continuing working on equity, inclusion, and diversity.
All right. How important is our SAFE program to the city?
I think the SAFE program is really important. I would say it's a crucial part of keeping our children, our pedestrians, bikers, and people who need ADA services safe. I think the program works in unison with the city's climate goals, helping to promote less car driving and to help climate change. I think I believe the funding's through utility bills, so there's a funding source. I think the work that's been done by the PSAC committees and the residents and the council have all shown to prove that the SAFE program is valuable, a value resource for our citizens. I live in the Linwood neighborhood, and I've been able to benefit from having the sidewalks done in front of Linwood Elementary. I know I feel better for my kids walking around that area now that the sidewalks are in place. And I'm looking forward to see the rest of the SAFE program projects rolled out, especially around the schools.
Okay. The City Council's work is guided by our 2040 community vision, which states that in 2040, Milwaukie is a flourishing city that is entirely equitable, delightfully livable, and completely sustainable. Our 2 current city council goals, climate action and equity, inclusion, and justice, seek to fulfill this vision around equity and sustainability. What work do you feel is most important for the city to accomplish in those two goals to fulfill this vision?
One of the climate action plan, I would refer back to the SAFE program. I think it's an integral part of promoting not using cars and lowering our carbon footprint. So I think we should continue working with the SAFE program. I think the city should look into getting more or completely electric vehicles to kind of help reduce with emissions. Also working with TriMet to increase bus routes, so families who don't have cars can use those, and also just as an alternative to using cars. Also would like the city should look into maybe using more green building practices, or the contractors that we hire to look into using green building practices. As far as equity, the city has assembled a great equity steering committee. I would want to work with them into looking into how the city can be more inclusive and more equitable. I believe they're working on policing right now, but it would be nice to kind of have like an outline or vision from the committee, just what the city should look for short and long-term goals, and how we can reach those goals, and then not maybe put all the work on the SC, but like get some direction from the committee of what we should do. I also think the city should work on examining current policies through an equity lens to find policies that can be updated or would help communities of color and people with low-income communities. I think we should look for measurable results. I think inclusion is, really about creating spaces and systems that take people's views and culture into account, make them feel heard and welcome. I think equity kind of translates into those experiences into successes for disadvantaged communities.
Are you taking follow-up questions, or do you want to go through all?
Yeah, I think we're good. We can do follow-up questions. Go ahead.
So you mentioned measurable results. Talk to me about what kind of things would be measurable results.
For equity?
Well, either one. I welcome you to talk about either one, but you brought it up under equity, so.
Yeah. Well, one way is we can find equity in the workforce, the city's workforce, and by the percentage of diverse communities in the workforce, we can find it in the contractors that we use for city services. I think those are easy ways to kind of define some short-term or some easy ways to identify these. We can measure equity.
Good. All right. What do you hope to learn while serving in this position, and how do you see yourself contributing to the work of the council?
Well, many of you have been on the council for several years. I think I really would just help to learn from your experiences, both your challenges and your successes. I think the council, the city staff and residents have created a great blueprint of where Milwaukie should be headed in the future. I think I'd be like just want to be part of the process as refine that blueprint as the challenges arises, and just kind of nurturing the seeds that have already been planted. As far as contributing, I have professional experience working in county and state government. I've worked as a paralegal for a couple of different county agencies for over 20 years or so. I'm familiar with several different city processes. I have experience working with the public and nonprofits and different government agencies. I have a history of working on land use board of appeals cases, right-of-way, and supporting planning departments. I thrive on working collaboratively and looking at issues holistically. I'm a father of 2 young children, and I come from a working class family. I know how hard it is for those people to, struggle with childcare and affordable housing. As a Black man, I have a lived experience dealing with racism, and I can provide my personal experiences to help the council view those challenges with an equity lens.
Josh, would you mind going into a little more depth on some of your professional experience and just like working with land use issues? And it was a long list and I didn't catch it all. So just give us a couple of examples of specific things you've done.
I've worked primarily for county council and county government. I've worked with Santa Clara County Council's office in Santa Clara County, California. I worked with them for over 10 years. Worked with Washington County and their county council's office. I've also worked for the Oregon Department of Justice. So I spent a lot of time providing professional assistance to social services, but some of my duties were, or a large part of my duties were supporting the planning department. So part of my duties, especially in Washington County, was managing the land use, the LUBA appeals, and submitting the official record to the LUBA board, putting that record together, working on briefs on behalf of the county, responding to briefs, and working on those kind of appeals. And also for the right-of-way, helping the planning department with that process.
Thank you.
Knowing Milwaukie has a limited tax base and budget, are there specific areas where you would reduce or increase funding?
I'm taking a cursory review of the latest budget proposals, but there are specific areas where I would reduce funding, but I would like to see some more funding to the affordable housing program. I know it was one of the city's goals, was removed in September of last year, but I think a lot of that funding still came in from the CET. I would like to see that funding used for supporting families. I think we need to continue that work, continuing to use the resources from the CET to afford affordable housing. Also, I believe the Milwaukie affordable housing strategy, I think that was drafted sometime around 2018. I think it's, that it was for 5 years for 2023. So I would like to see some work put into looking at the next 5 years to ensure that we have affordable housing for our residents. Other than that, I would just, I think the SAFE program, like I said, is important. I think some of the projects are kind of planned out for several years. I would like to see some of those timelines shortened to get some of these projects done sooner.
I think you mentioned some of the federal funds that we had gotten for that, and that you thought we should use towards affordable housing. Did I hear that right?
I said the CET funds.
No, okay, so I did miss it.
I mentioned the CET funds, construction exercise tax funds.
Yeah. All right. All right, good. Any follow-ups?
I mean, I would just say if there's anything else that we didn't hit on that you want to tell us, or the floor is yours.
Okay. I just, I appreciate the council's time. I apologize, couldn't be in person. I had an issue with my sitter, but I've been in Milwaukie for the last couple of years. I've really grown to love the city we live in and like making the connections that I've had with some of the residents and families. And I just want to be part of the process of helping Milwaukie become what's, a great place to live. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else, any other? We still have 17 minutes. If we want it. No? All right. Well, thank you very much. Oh,
Actually, yeah. I mean, since we have time, I'll ask
Go
you.
for it.
Your responses, your written responses, it didn't come up today, but mentioned your work with the community group that was working on Errol Heights Park. Could you talk about that a little bit and how you got involved in that and what kind of role you played in that?
Sure, yeah. So I was a part of the community advisory committee for the Errol Heights Park project. The initial plan for the park was several years old. There was some new funding resources that came in to improve the park. So the city of Portland wanted to tap into the community to kind of help figure out the future for the park. So I was chosen to be part of the community. At the time I lived, a stone's throw away from the park. So I was, really excited to be part of the process. There was a big push from a lot of the community members to keep in place the community garden that had been built there. So the community garden had been built after the plan had been created. So there was a lot of community desire to keep that a key component of the park. So the committee made sure that would be retained at the park, and it's part of the current process now that the community gardens stay in there. There's also some questions about access for like the fire department and where the roads would kind of go through, because some of the initial plans would have the roads go right through the community garden. So we were able to come up with a plan that I think most people were happy with, where it was able to maintain a lot of the natural resources. Down below, it's kind of more of a natural area, and some of the upper parts will be used more for like playgrounds, like natural field playgrounds, stuff like that, more than that place. So it's natural playgrounds, some picnic areas, and the community garden, I think will be the focus of the overall levels.
And it's been a few years ago since I was there. Is it all finished or is it still being worked on?
I wish, not quite.
Yeah.
So, you said you've been there. So a lot of the grading is, it's really slow. So there's going to be a lot of work to put in to kind of, make it, level on the upper ends and make it, some of the trails and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot of infrastructure, I would say, for better word, for the park to make it ready to go. But I do know they're also doing in the area LID to improve the streets. I do know the work, the LID has started, and they have been replacing some of the electric poles and some of those kind of things. But I believe they found a contractor to do some of the work. So I would imagine, knock on wood, that it should be done. Hopefully maybe like a year or two, I would think.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything I'm sorry, go ahead.
Josh, can you tell us about what you're currently doing?
I'm currently, for work, I recently got hired with Clackamas County, and I'm working with the Housing Authority and their new supportive housing program. So I'm a paralegal by trade, so I'm working on a lot of the contracts with the nonprofits to deliver the services to Clackamas County residents.
Do you like that?
I enjoy it a lot. It's very rewarding. Feels good to be able to be engaged in a program that has some funding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask if you had any observations around from being on the community member side of working on the park, about kind of how that all went, and if there were things that you would do differently or thought really worked in terms of how the city engaged with the neighborhood and with you as a community member on that committee.
I thought the process went really well. We had several different meetings where the public could attend. They were close to where most of the residents live, so make it accessible. We had after work so people could be there. We also had online resources where people can take surveys. We sent out mailers to different residents. We had a couple different in-person meetings at the site so people could see what some of the plans are. We took community input on making revisions. And I think it went really well. We went through several different stages coming up with a plan that would, satisfy, the majority of the people. But I think the process went really well. I think the best part was just reaching out to the community and kind of getting their feel. I think it touched a lot of hearts that we were able to keep the community garden as part of the park. So I think that was really important.
Thanks.
I have one more question.
Go for it.
So you've been in Milwaukie for a couple years. Can you describe what you've learned or seen being a Black man moving into Milwaukie?
I moved to Milwaukie. About 3 years ago or so. So I moved in the summer right before COVID hit. So I moved here. I was here a couple months and everything kind of shut down. So I think I had a unique kind of indoctrination into moving in. I think my personal experience, as a Black man, there is some diversity out there, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of, in the area I live, a lot of people of color that I've seen. So I think, maybe a little bit different. Sometimes it's a little bit different for my kids to relate with some of the people. So it's always nice to kind of make connections and stuff like that to kind of give them an experience where they don't feel left out.
Thank you.
Anything else? Good?
Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
All right. Great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
You're obviously welcome to hang out if you want. All righty. Next up, Adam Khosroabadi.
Good evening, Council.
Okay. What do you think are the three most important concerns facing Milwaukie?
Currently, right now, I view affordability, which includes housing, utility costs, overall cost of living, climate change, and economic development as the three most important concerns, but none of these are possible without equity, inclusion, and justice. That's the key. As far as climate change, there's still a lot of work to be done. Being on the Planning Commission, had a hand on the tree code, which is going to preserve 40% of our tree canopy. But I feel there's, looking at the climate action plan, we do have a lot of areas where we have issues with our carbon footprint, primarily from CO2 emissions from housing and commercial buildings. The other area where we have a pretty large carbon footprint is what we purchase outside of the city. So I would like to look at the possibility of bringing in some sort of green production, green economy, something that maybe the business community uses the most, like those to-go boxes that are recyclable. If we can maybe drive down those costs and potentially bring production for something like that, it would help not only the businesses, but also reduce our reliance on outside purchases of products we need, which reduces obviously the trucks that need to be delivered, the cardboard that needs to be used, the plastic that needs to be obtained with it, and could also bring good paying jobs here to Milwaukie as well. Economic development, that's mostly for our small business community. As we know, it was devastated through COVID. I would love to be able to see a portion of the business registration fund possibly set aside to be used for a potential rainy day fund for businesses in the event of another economic crisis that they face. But I think the support for the business community is crucial. I would like to see incentives for BIPOC-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, LGBTQIA businesses. I mean, I think it's very important that we look at each one of these issues through that equity lens that we're aiming for.
All right. How important is our SAFE program to the city?
It's extremely important because everyone needs safe routes to get places. Our kids, obviously me as a soon-to-be father, I mean, I take walks right now with my wife on Monroe, and, I live in the same neighborhood as Josh in Linwood, and it's, there's really nowhere to walk on some of the busier streets except for, where they just did the Linwood construction. Obviously for, ADA accessibility, that's important as well. Everybody should have access to get to where they want to go, whether it's through a car, whether it's through on foot, whether it's through bike. They need to have that access, and it's going to be crucial also for the climate. If we give people in this community more opportunities and options for transportation, the less likely they're going to be using the vehicles that are causing most of the carbon emissions in our community, which also actually leads to better health outcomes as well.
The City Council's work is guided by our 2040 community vision, which states that in 2040, Milwaukie is a flourishing city that is entirely equitable, delightfully livable, and completely sustainable. Our two current City Council goals, climate action and equity, inclusion, and justice, seek to fulfill this vision around equity and sustainability. What work do you feel is most important for the city to accomplish in those two goals to fulfill this vision?
I really appreciated this question because I did the math, which I don't like to do, but I did the math, and my son will be 18 years old in 2040. So I started thinking about what the future is going to look like for him at 18 when he's about to graduate high school and start his own life. What are we going to leave for him and all the other kids? And I'm going to be the father of a multiracial child. I'm an Iranian Muslim man. My wife is a Peruvian woman. She was the daughter of two Peruvian immigrants. So the work we do now, as much as we want to say 2040 is a goal, we should always aim to achieve those goals sooner, if possible. Going to climate action, again, back to the home emissions, when you look at the climate action plan, we're doing a great job in a lot of those areas, but in the areas where we have the most CO2, we could do a lot better, right? And it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. With the housing emissions, as well as the stuff purchased outside of Milwaukie. Now, again, with the tree code, I know that we are working on a commercial tree code coming up next, because I do believe that development, as seen with Triangle Park, development is what causes the most damage to these trees, right? Is what causes the most damage to our canopy, because you're dealing with a larger property, you're dealing with a larger building, so it's going to leave a larger footprint. So I think it's very important and very crucial that we make sure that the tree code for commercial buildings is next on our list, to make sure that not only are they held responsible for when they cut down a tree they shouldn't, but also that they're in line with all of the goals that we have set for this city. In regards to equity, inclusion, and justice, it's tough. Especially living in a county where you have a commissioner, an elected county commissioner, who has come out and attacked our BIPOC community, our LGBTQIA community, as well our Middle Eastern Muslim community, which I consider part of our BIPOC community. Because obviously that side doesn't like us either, as it's been clearly represented. I was voted as secretary of the Veteran Advisory Council right as the comments that Scholl made had come out. And once I was elected, the first thing I did was make sure that we as a Veteran Council upheld Commissioner Scholl accountable for the comments that he made. So I suggested we draft a letter. That letter was sent to Commissioner Scholl. We invited him to a meeting, and myself, as well as other members of our BIPOC community who are on that council, on the Veteran Advisory Council, also members of our LGBTQIA plus community, they were there, they got to share their stories. He wasn't very apologetic about it. And the very next county commission meeting, he moved to disband our council. We're holding him accountable. So myself, along with the other executive committee members, were under investigation. The whole council was under investigation. They found that we weren't doing anything wrong. They just wanted more subordination from us, even though we're a volunteer board. So now I'm the chair of that committee. Now I was elected as the chair. And the work that I've done on that goes hand in hand with the work that cities want to do. The issue is we're just limited. We're doing everything we can to make sure that not only our veterans are taken care of, but veterans and their family members, veterans who are part of these communities that are marginalized, because there are veterans that are out there. I'm one of them. You know, I've been criticized for being Muslim and fighting overseas. I've been criticized from the other side of not, even though I fought for this country, I'm still a towelhead, even though I don't even look like that. And I realize and I understand that my complexion has gotten me away with things. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that. I'll admit it. But it doesn't take away the prejudices that my family has experienced. It doesn't take away my commitment to making sure that everybody is felt and everybody is heard. And communication is a big key, and education is a big key. Education is a huge barrier breaker. You know, the more we're able to educate, the more we're able to highlight what the culture is of our city and what our BIPOC community members bring to this city, not only to the city, but to the state of Oregon, the better off we're going to be. The more we're going to break those walls down. You know, the continued work of the Equity Steering Committee, working with the police department, that's huge. We have to continue to do that, continue to promote that. I can commend our police department, because from what I've heard, everything that I've heard, they've done a great job, and I know our chief is committed to making sure we do have an equitable, inclusive, just future. And the work that we do now is not just for 2040, but it's for tomorrow, it's for today, and it's for yesterday as well. So it can't be understated that representation does matter. And I'm not sure if anybody knows this, but there is only currently one elected official in the state of Oregon who is Iranian, and that is David Imami in Happy Valley. There is no Iranian representation in the state. It's in the history of the state. And it's important, and it's a voice that we have not heard yet.
Thank you. What do you hope to learn while serving in this position, and how do you see yourself contributing to the work of this council?
I hope to learn to be a better person. I hope to learn to be a better listener. I hope to grow, not only as an individual, but there's business owners here, there's fathers here, there's veterans here. I want to learn to be better as a whole. And I want to be able to commit myself to the people of the city and to the city itself. That's what I'm bringing to the table, is really my commitment and my lived experiences. I've been through, I've been on welfare when my mother was around. That's how we survived, welfare. Food stamps. We would get boxes of food donated to us from churches. I mean, that's how we lived. And going hungry is painful. Dealing with mental health issues is painful. Dealing with these things are difficult. And knowing that you have somebody that you can look to that will meet you where you're at, not just expect you to come to City Hall, but will meet you where you're at, I think is crucial and important, and something that I know that I can bring. I changed my entire career path to be able to commit myself to this city. I was coaching football at PSU. I was living my dream. That was my dream, was to coach football. My dream was to eventually get to the NFL. And with the events of 2020, the magnitude of events of 2020, and with January 6th, I realized that I would be more effective here. I'm a calling individual. I always listen to my heart, I guess.
Sorry, I'm a slow note taker.
No.
My hand just.
I can talk too much too.
You do talk.
Sorry.
All right. Knowing that Milwaukie has a limited tax base and budget, are there specific areas where you would reduce or increase funding?
Yes, I mean, SAFE program, I would love to see funding increase for that, because there's a lot of projects that are in the pipeline, and I don't think that, these SAFE routes could be done sooner. Obviously, the sooner the better, right? I would love to see funding there. I mean, as far as reducing funding, I understand that we have a limited tax base and a budget. But what I would like to do is be bold enough to look outside of taxes and fees as ways to generate revenue. So that way we don't have to worry about increasing or decreasing funding in anything. We can strictly increase funding in the areas we find need the most. Obviously, we can be traditional, go back and look at the budget and see where we're, based on metrics, on measurables, where the funding is not performing as well and where it is performing better. And then we can move funds around that way if we want to. But I'd like to look at other ways. This council is talking about the internet, bringing internet to the city. We can bring that at a discounted price to, at least at a minimum, to fixed income or low income families. And that could be revenue for the city, to where that revenue can potentially replace or reduce other fees we currently have that are also, making things a little bit more difficult for families. I mean, Milwaukie does have a higher utility cost. It does cost more for utilities here than Lake Oswego, slightly. But when you look at it, Lake Oswego compared to here, median household income, median home value, it's just, you can't even compare the two. So I think we should look into other ways that we can generate revenue outside of just the taxes and fees, and use that to hopefully make this place a more equitable place to live. I do also think providing good jobs. I do have that here as well. I want to throw that in there. With bringing some of the screen production, we potentially can provide pretty good paying jobs for people, which in effect will also lead to a better life. If we can bring down the cost of living of what we have them pay, then that money they save can go towards so many other things like healthcare, which obviously is constantly under attack. I'm so sorry.
It's not your fault.
All right, who has?
I have a couple follow-ups. Okay. So in the first question, you talked about maybe as a part of economic development, trying to create incentives for BIPOC, women-owned, LGBTQ-owned businesses. Like what form would you see those kind of business incentives taking?
Well, in meeting with some of the business owners, who are part of our BIPOC community, there's a lot of fees that have to be paid, not just city fees, state fees, county fees. That's something that we can help, either waive the business registration fee or reduce it to help incentivize them. I mean, we can also have it to where each year, I know the initial fee is higher than the fee you pay the following year. But if we could do some sort of like a loyalty discount on the fee to where every year you stay in business in Milwaukie, we reduce that fee by 10, 15, 20 bucks. And we can drop that fee as low as $75 or $50. I mean, I think that would go away not only towards incentivizing people to open those businesses, but it would really let those businesses know that the city's behind them and we're here to do what we can to help them grow and stay open. Now, obviously, I think another key part is going to be working hand in hand with the Downtown Milwaukie Business Association, which I would like to see become the Milwaukie Business Alliance. If there is a way that we can work hand in hand, the council with our city staff, council, and Downtown Milwaukie Business Alliance, then I think that could be another conduit of support for local businesses, so they don't feel like they don't know where to go. Because I remember being a food cart here in the food cart pod myself, it was difficult for a lot of us to figure out how we could, promote that area or how we could work with the city, and that, having a city government behind you like that can go a very long way.
The other thing I wanted to ask was, you talked about the Veterans Council and the issue with Commissioner Shull, but I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about what the Veterans Council's day-to-day kind of projects or issues are. And I don't want to ask you to say anything that makes you uncomfortable, but I'd be interested in hearing a little bit about your own military experience, if you're comfortable talking about that.
Absolutely, 100%. So the Veteran Advisory Council, we basically it's very similar to the councils that we have here in the city, where we make recommendations to the commission based on a number of issues. Veteran homelessness, the Vet Village has been something that Clackamas County is very proud of because it's providing transitional housing for vets that get them into permanent housing. We also have subcommittees within the council. So I'm on the mental health subcommittee, and we're discussing, right now we're working on putting together a mental health summit for veterans and their family members on increasing the number of VSOs that are in the county, increasing the number of mental health practitioners for veterans. And we're talking also on measures to prevent veteran suicide. And it's not, obviously mental health is a great issue. We just focus on vets, but I would like to, do more with mental health also with council if that's possible. But we also have another subcommittee, which is for outreach, which I'm on that subcommittee as well. And that subcommittee is specifically to get more, to figure out how can we get more vets, not only to be on council, but how can we get more vets the help that they need? And a lot of it right now, our focus is on those veteran communities from our most marginalized populations. Because it's one thing to be a veteran, it's another thing to be a veteran and be either a member of the BIPOC community or LGBTQIA community, and then to have somebody wear the same uniform, like Commissioner Scholl, come and say those things about you or about your community. It is very difficult, and that can create barriers, right? That creates fear, right? And the only way to dismantle that is to know that you have somebody behind you. So that's why we're making it a specific issue of reaching out to those specific communities to make sure that they're heard from. They earn the same benefits regardless of what Commissioner Scholl says or not. And then my own military experience. I was 18 when I went to boot camp, left 4 days after I graduated high school. The reason I went was because of September 11th. I woke up to it at 16 years old. And I knew that I had to do something. I felt like I had to do something. And I saw the rhetoric coming for Muslims and Middle Easterns. I saw what was coming. It's a pattern throughout our history. We'd be foolish to deny that. So the other part of the reason was I want to show that it's not the religion. It's not the people. This is there's bad in every bunch. And we can't just use a broad paintbrush and slap red paint on everything we dislike and say they're all the same. It's partly how we got to where we are, really. So when I joined the infantry. So I was boots on the ground. I had my 19th birthday in Iraq in 2004. I was in the Battle of Fallujah in April of 2004. I was a point man, and a point man on foot patrols is in front of the rest of the patrol. The nearest person behind you is about 15 meters back. And the point man's job is to be the eyes and ears for the rest of the squad. If you miss anything, the way that they would operate is the IEDs that they would place, they would wait to get till the squad was till the IED was about halfway through the squad, because that would cause the most damage. So if you missed anything as the point man and anything happened behind you, you're responsible. So it was something I wore with pride. It was something I didn't take lightly. It was a great experience, but I came home damaged. And I had a 5-year period where I went through a lot, mental health wise and just personally. And it took a lot to get me to where I am now. And the perseverance is something that I hope to inspire in people in this community, and that fight, and knowing that you can't let your past dictate you or who you are. A lot of people in my family look to me and still wonder how, I'm here today, because statistically I shouldn't be. No parents, bounced around from house to house, in and out of the justice system. War. Statistically, I shouldn't be here, and I'm proud to be here. And I can't wait to be able to teach my son everything I've learned and provide an equitable and sustainable city for him to call home, and for everybody that calls Milwaukie home. Everybody deserves that, at the very least. A place that they feel comfortable to call home. That's why I serve.
You mentioned briefly the work you've been doing on the Planning Commission. You've been on 3 years, 4 years? I'm forgetting.
Not that long, probably about a year, I think, just about, yeah. Because I was on PSAC for a while.
Weren't you on before the last election?
Oh, yeah, that's right, I was. That's right, yeah, so, wow.
So it's,
So I'm behind.
it's COVID years, right? So it's actually a decade.
Blended into one. I know, it feels like we went through a decade of events, right? Doesn't it? Like,
So, you know, you guys have had some pretty tough, matter of fact, it's been a really heavy couple of years for the Planning Commission with all the various, the missing middle housing zoning and a lot of new development and all that stuff. And it's very time consuming, I know, too. Do you feel like you can continue to put that level of time and commitment into the city going forward? Because having done both of those jobs, I know that when being a planning commissioner, it's heavy, and a council position can get pretty time consuming too. So just want to get a sense of, you know, do you feel comfortable continuing to have that kind of a schedule and that kind of a load?
I do, absolutely, 100%, no doubt. And the reason I say that is because I geared up for this. You know, in 2020, when I initially ran, I made a commitment that this was going to be it. This is the path that I have chosen now. All the, whatever I did at PSU aside, you know, this is my new path. And I've changed my career. I'm a notary public now, so I did that purposely to free up my schedule so I can commit to Planning Commission, the Veteran Council, and as much as I can commit to. And to be honest with you, I'm still bored. So I am ready for this. I'm geared up for this. I can't wait for this. I want to hit the ground running, and I'll do it with a baby on my chest.
Cool. Do you have any questions?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
All right, Rebecca, you're on the hot seat.
Good evening, Council. Rebecca Stavenjord. I use she, her pronouns.
All right. What do you think are the three most important concerns facing Milwaukie?
The three most important concerns I think facing our community are engagement through a lens of equity, development with climate action at the forefront, and maintaining the internal capacity to meet the city's growing needs. And I have a few thoughts on those, which I'll try to briefly summarize. With regard to equity and engagement, strategies we should be thinking about in these areas are really in two buckets. Individual ways that we can increase safety, trust, and belonging, and systemic ways that we can address historic disinvestment in underrepresented populations. And these are not mutually exclusive strategies of work. And in fact, I think that they should be addressed with the assumption that they interrelate and intersect quite a deal. It's been very encouraging as of late to see the work of John Hennington and the Equity Committee really dig into conversations around the layers of these issues and reinvent the work that they're doing at the Equity Committee level, thinking very intentionally around how the city can address the policy change and the practices so we can start to interrupt some of these cycles of inequities. And this work is resonating through city departments and our programs. It's being reflected in the way we think about services we provide and how we choose to engage the communities in different ways. If we think about these strategies and how they're implemented in the neighborhood system, on our boards and committees, how they show up in diverse leadership and staff, I hope we're able to continue to lead boldly around this goal. And if I have the opportunity to serve Milwaukie on council, I pledge that I recognize the privilege that I hold in these spaces and the responsibility that comes with that, which is the responsibility to listen to understand, and to amplify the messages of Black, Indigenous, people of color in Milwaukee, and to advocate in spaces where those messages are silenced. The second area that I mentioned is development around our goals with climate action at the forefront. There's a great deal of growth that's coming to our city. Hundreds of new housing units, an increase in vehicle traffic on local roads, undoubtedly future emergencies like wildfires and ice storms. And in order to keep pace with all the development we face, we will have a strain on our infrastructure. Water and sewer capacity, deterioration of street surfaces, the need for community spaces to gather and recreate. In this biennium's budget, we see staffing increases for parking management, parks development, and houseless services. These are important investments, but they only highlight the emerging needs in the community as we adjust to change around us. And while we have strong goals around climate change, we must stay the course and adapt to the implications of that change. Our efforts to mitigate climate change in Milwaukee have to intersect with the deeply acute needs of social and cultural inequities that also arise for our residents. In the coming years, the council will have the responsibility of implementing state legislation, the comp plan implementation, downtown design, transportation systems planning, discussions of neighborhood hubs, all integrated with climate resilience and equity at its core. And Milwaukee is facing this rapid change. In order to stay true to the 2040 community vision, we have to lean into that hard work if we're going to stay on track. This leads to the third area that I mentioned, which is the need for internal capacity to meet those growing needs. The pandemic highlighted a huge shift in our workforce across the country. Many people changing careers or leaving the workforce entirely. And one of the reasons that I chose to apply for this position is because we stood to lose a representation of women on council. And I see too many voices of friends and colleagues around me who have left the workforce or their roles in community. And I made the intentional decision to step up in this space. In local government, we're not only dealing with the Great Resignation, but a coming wave of retirements for public employees. Vast amounts of historical knowledge and skills leave our local sectors with those retirements. And we're already seeing how hard it is to recruit for positions and remain competitive in the job market. Milwaukee is an amazing place to live and to work, but we have to continue to recruit and maintain skilled staff to keep on pace with our goals and the plans that we hope to implement so that we have that place in the city.
That was just the first question, right? That was a lot. Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I looked down and I went, no, I'm missing some notes here. No, I'm kidding. How important is
I have a
our...
lot of thoughts.
Yeah, that's good. How important is our SAFE program to the city?
The SAFE program is critical. Okay, so some other thoughts, and I'll go fast on these. Global rankings, please, thanks. Do you want me to just hand you these?
No, we're good.
So I was looking at global rankings for livability, and they include things like compact design, good transit, walkable neighborhoods. No automobile-oriented city is in the top 50. But going car-free is not a reality for a lot of families. And so we have to balance this in our community and what that looks like in terms of the infrastructure that we provide for residents of all backgrounds. I think that our focus needs to be on a reduction of vehicle miles traveled, but that actually means that in order to impact emissions and increase overall health, we have to be able to develop local nodes of activity in our neighborhoods. That means an increase of walkable and bike-friendly infrastructure all across the city. It means a key need for the conversation around hubs of commercial and social spaces for activity that are actually outside of downtown, not in competition with downtown, but in addition to. And it means engaging all of our communities, including young residents, in the process of shaping the future, because they're not only the future, but they're very much the present of Milwaukie. So the pieces that I've been really excited about with the SAFE program are the completion of McBride Avenue, Lake Road, Linwood Avenue. A side note, when I first moved to Milwaukie about 20 years ago, I moved there as a renter right at the intersection of Linwood and Railroad. And I used to walk up Linwood Avenue daily, taking my dog for walks, going up to the park with the school. And when I think back on how my life has taken this path of becoming a mom and now coming back and living in Milwaukie, I'm so grateful for the improvement along Linwood because it is walkable and it is comfortable. And I remember not being able to wear headphones when I would walk my dog because I was acutely aware of cars that, might be leaving the roadway or people who might be distracted. And I know that type of change is sometimes really hard for residents. And I get that a lot of that heat comes to council. But when we think about the shape of our community and the shape of the future of our community, we can't be thinking about suburban form. We have to be thinking about a compact urban environment that encourages people to be walking around in their neighborhood safely. I'll share another story that fast forwards 20 years. We have a 12-year-old, and Harper has attended Ardenwald Elementary and now attends Rao Middle School. They cross 42nd Avenue multiple times a day, and my heart is in my throat every single time I know that they're crossing that street. They cross right at the Roswell Market. And depending on which corner you're at a crosswalk or you're at a semi-marked crosswalk. And I'm so grateful for the improvements that have been made because it adds clarity for my child to navigate safely in their community. Harper was a part of a group of young people from the Llewellyn neighborhood who participated in our traffic survey. And they had an opportunity to meet with some of the engineering and planning staff and take them on a little walkabout. And they crossed 42nd a handful of times, each time really trying to reorient that conversation to what it means to be a young person crossing the street. It's very, very different than what it means for me to cross the street. I can feel comfortable signaling my intention to cross the street. But for a young person, that car is in control. And they're going to be hesitant. And the clear markings that we have and the more definitive crossing space that we have for kids and for families, I feel the better. I also live next to the improvements on 42nd and 43rd that go down toward the King Safeway. And I'm already seeing more people out and about. It's really, it's wonderful. And people were walking to Safeway to get groceries and, the need is there, right? They're either going to walk or they're going to drive or they're going to do both. But now if we have sidewalks and we have safe delineated areas for them to be able to walk around their neighborhood and feel comfortable, then they'll make the choice to do that more often. Order.
Sorry.
Never learn shorthand.
I know.
Are you using shorthand?
No.
Okay. The City Council's work is guided by our 2040 community vision, which states that in 2040, Milwaukie is a flourishing city that is entirely equitable, delightfully livable, and completely sustainable. Our two current council goals, climate action and equity, inclusion, and justice, seek to fulfill this vision around equity and sustainability. What work do you feel is the most important for the city to accomplish those goals, those two goals, to fulfill this vision?
Okay, so my answer can be,
18 minutes.
what's that?
Only have 18 minutes.
I got this. All right, so the 2040 vision is bold, but it needs to be. And I have never lived in any other city in my entire life where I believed that they actually had a chance of reaching the goal. And I think that Milwaukie does. And the word, they're not just words, right? These are very intentional phrases. A lot of work went in to putting this together. Entirely equitable, delightfully livable, completely sustainable. And there are a lot of questions that come up around each of those, right? For who, who came up with this? Who's a part of developing and implementing all of these, these aspirations for the city, but they do encompass the hope and the dream that we have for Milwaukie. I've worked for local governments, very dedicated local governments for 22 years, many of whom have been dedicated to some of very similar phrases. And I don't, hopefully none of them are watching. What I'm going to say is what I truly believe. What I see with Milwaukie staff, all of the employees that make the city run and the councilors who serve the city, I have never seen such a commitment at the core to serving our communities. And I appreciate that as a resident, as a mother, as a neighborhood leader, and I am very excited about the opportunity to be a part of that work with you. I mentioned that I lived at the corner of Railroad and Linwood. I wasn't able to buy a house at the time, so after a few years, I moved into Portland. And I was very excited then several years ago, my husband and I were able to buy a house in Milwaukie. We wouldn't be able to buy that same house today. And I think that that's indicative of one of the challenges that's all too real for a lot of our communities. When you look at the community survey and you talk about housing, the percentage of satisfaction of housing costs, that decreased, but not when you disaggregate that for communities of color. So we still have a lot of work to do, and that's intentional, deep, systemic work. Okay, ideas. I'm gonna go fast, don't worry. With regard to climate change, here are some of the things that I'm particularly excited about exploring. Solar microgrids with storage systems that reduce our reliance on carbon-based electricity, but also increase our resilience in the event of a natural disaster. I also think that we should find ways to continue to incentivize residential adoption of 100% renewable and local power. I believe that we should consider the municipal adoption of alternative waste programs for hard-to-recycle products. We have an example of this with Exceed Enterprises, and Milwaukie is home to a lot of industrial spaces that I think could be part of a conversation around the location of industries that are friendly to recycling hard to reuse products. And on the theme of reuse, I think it would be exciting to see an economic development strategy for the recruitment of businesses that focus on the reuse of recycled or found items. A lot of downtowns or city centers have something that they're known for, where you go there for antiquing, or you go there for the bar scene or the restaurants. And I think that there's a lot of creativity in Milwaukie, and I think we can do something with that there. I am also, admittedly, a fair weather and family-focused biker. I would like to do more of that, but it is what it is. I would like to see placemaking built into some of our bike infrastructure that makes it an experience for families and a little bit more of a reason to get out of the house with the kids. I dream of a bike path that's covered with a solar energy grid because then it won't rain on your kids as much and they'll enjoy the bike ride a little bit longer, and you're also generating electricity for some of the infrastructure around us. I also have this crazy idea of an electric trolley system that would help to break down the divide of 224 and the north and south portions of the community, but also bring back and revitalize some of that historic feel of our trolley system before the highway went in. Second goal is around equity, inclusion, and justice. I'm going to skip to just the ideas. I feel like we're going to look back on this and laugh, right?
Why wait?
Why wait? Just laugh at it now. So In terms of community engagement, I think we have to acknowledge that our systems of engagement are not set up for everyone. And that's not unique to Milwaukie. I think that's why across the board we see largely homogenous NDAs, boards and committees that serve local governments. We have an opportunity, however, to change it because you have really dedicated, wonderful leaders within the NDAs. I've had an opportunity as the chair of the Llewellyn neighborhood to meet and talk with them, and I know that they will be a part of these conversations. I think that it's also more than translated materials, culturally relevant outreach, interpretation at events, childcare, food, et cetera. Those go a little way in making an accessible and welcoming space, but you're creating a welcoming space, or you're creating a welcoming pathway to a space that already exists. And I think what we really need to look at is reinventing the spaces that are where our communities can come together and be a part of change in the city. On a deeper level, I think that we do need to look at why communities distrust government, distrust law enforcement. I know that there's been a lot of conversation with community and with our departments about that, and I also know that we have a lot more work to do. There are issues of implicit bias, recognizing privilege and power, historical inequities, all of the systemic oppression that we have an opportunity at various points of leverage within the leadership of the city to be a part of. And I think that council sets the standard for what that is. I think that we have had very strong, very bold leadership, and if given the opportunity, I'm really excited to be able to continue that. I'll stop there.
Okay. What do you hope to learn while serving in this position, and how do you see yourself contributing to the work of this council?
I've had a lot of opportunities to be involved in communities where I've lived. I mentioned that I'm the chair of the Llewellyn NDA. I'm also a Girl Scout leader, and that has a totally different skill set, but sometimes those intersect. We also have a lot of community events that we put together without any formal organization, other than just the business that we have at our home, which is registered, by the way, at the Three Stinky Goats Urban Farm. So I look at every single opportunity that I have to learn from people in these opportunities, whether it be, connecting with someone on a one-on-one basis, or being a part of a neighborhood volunteer group, or leading a regional initiative. You always have an opportunity to learn. And if you ever think that you know it all, that's the moment where you should realize that you absolutely don't. So I do hope to have a lot to learn if I have the opportunity to work on council. I know that I do my best work when I am working with people who I've shared values with. I do my best work when I'm in authentic environments where we can talk about our differences and still recognize that we have common goals for the people that we serve. I thrive in places where creative problem solving is needed and wanted. And I also realize that while the future of our city is bright, we have a long ways to go. It's going to be a hard journey. And we also stand at this point to see a lot of turnover on council, which I know will require the council coming together even stronger. So it's not just counselors that I hope to learn from, or community members that I hope to engage with and see the experience of the city through their eyes, but it's also the city staff and all of the employees that make things run every single day, that are responsible for responding when there's an ice storm, or as my husband is constantly surprised that there's a street sweeper going by our house, because when we lived in Portland, we never saw that. There's a lot of dedication, and I hope to learn from all of the people who help Milwaukie run behind the scenes.
All right, knowing Milwaukie has a limited tax base and budget, are there specific areas where you would reduce or increase funding?
Yes. So local governments struggle with sustainable revenue across the board. I haven't found one yet that, has a huge amount of money to deal with. And in Oregon, without the reform of Measures 5 and 50, we don't really see that changing, which is really unfortunate for a lot of communities that we serve and for communities that benefit from it as well. So in the last several years, we've seen a response to that limitation, but it means that local jurisdictions or regional jurisdictions have to get creative in the type of taxes or fees that they're imposing. And so we've seen Metro's regional measures around housing, affordable housing, and supportive housing services. I think that while that is a very helpful fix regionally, without some intentional reform of our tax structure in Oregon, we're going to be behind the ball. We're seeing inflation. We're seeing the cost of doing business increasing. So while we have all of that to focus on, here are a couple of things that I think are in line with our equity goals. Community events and gathering spaces that are planned for and put together by diverse community members. So on the neighborhood district associations, we often get requests for small grants, and those come to us throughout the year. The community organizers for a lot of events and activities that benefit the community are doing a whole circuit, and they're coming and they're asking each of the NDAs and community partners to cobble together the funding to support a space where residents can commemorate, can celebrate, can come together when they're not coming to NDA meetings. And I think we need to do a better job of really realizing why people show up to events and why they don't show up to events. And I think that part of that is a structural fix. The NDA has a funding formula that they get every year. That puts them at odds with community members who are putting together amazing offerings for the community because they're sometimes at the end of the year confronted with the realization that, in order to do the annual summer events that they want to do, to provide to the entire community, that they have to cut down the amount that they might be able to give to a community organization. And that really shouldn't be the case. I think we need to work with the Equity Committee, the NDAs, and the council and have a conversation about what funding and support for culturally specific events needs to look like. I know that some of those conversations have started, but I think that would be a great benefit to all of our communities. I also think that we should look at the funding structure for Parks and Recreation programming. Council made the decision a couple of weeks ago to look more intently into our relationship with North Clackamas Parks and Recreation. This is a district that we pay into, not always a district that we see equal benefit coming back into. And I recognize, they have a master plan. There are multiple communities to account for, but with the amount of growth that Milwaukie is going to experience in the coming years, we really need spaces for the community and for youth to gather. The tax rate is low for the district, and I really truly believe that we shouldn't have to alter that to be able to offer an increase in services. And then the last thing, I wanted to appreciate the work that has been done by Ann and Chief Straight and others around increasing staffing for houselessness coordination. I saw an increase of an FTE in the budget for that, possibly two. And I think that, we have a number of our neighborhoods are very close to pockets where there is very intense acute need. And it's a responsibility that should be shared with the county. It's a responsibility that has been in part answered through the Metro bonds. And I think that that conversation is a very important one for Milwaukie to continue to lead around. Feel like I've been saying a lot.
2 minutes and 26 seconds. Really quickly, I want to ask you why, I'm sorry if anybody else had questions. Okay. Why do you think we can stay at the same percentage or rate for parks and do a better job?
Yeah. Well, so it's not just the tax rate that contributes to park funds. It's also SDCs in part. It's also some of the Metro regional funds. There are also some grant funds that are available. I think we have a lot of creative fight in us to be able to prioritize what the investments look like without right out the gate increasing the tax. I think that will be something that residents support. I mean, I don't know of a lot of people who are in favor of increasing taxes until they get to know exactly what that increase would be for. And so my recommendation would be to keep the tax rate at the exact same amount, because that's what people are paying now. And then we would have local ownership of our parks. We'd be able to do improvements, maintenance, develop recreation coordination within that. There's already a Parks Development Coordinator position that's built into the budget this year. Ideally, we'd be able to also take some Parks and Recreation staff. And I know that it's not as easy as a 2-minute and 10-second answer, but I do think that there's potential for us to put together a plan that meets the need and probably exceeds it, and then we can build on from there.
Thanks. Wow, you ran out the clock.
Yeah, you have 30 seconds.
Any last thing you want to get across? 30 seconds?
I just appreciate all that you do. This is the first meeting, I think, in a long time that you might be able to leave before it gets dark.
Well, when it starts getting dark at 9 o'clock at night, that works for Anna.
Oh, you're not supposed to realize that part of it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. All right, do we want to take a break or do we want to discuss?
I would like a break.
I would like a break.
All right, 10-minute break.
Oh, Lord.
So, ish,
6:30.
about 6:30, be back. welcome back to the special session. Now we are at the deliberation point. We had 3 excellent interviews. I want to start by saying that we have a very good problem, which is that we have lots of really good candidates. I personally hope that, we've got a lot of open seats come this fall. And I personally hope that even the person that gets appointed has to run. So there you go. I hope all 3 of you are running in November. I think each of you would make an outstanding counselor. So our hard part is figuring out who to do it with for the next, whatever that is, 6 months-ish.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, it's right at.
It is tomorrow.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to kick off actual deliberations, happy to.
I would agree with you that this is a better problem to have. Right? I thought all 3 were really great. I think it's going to be hard. Someone else can start?
That was a strong start. I'm with you. Well, I will throw out there that the one person who is up on this dais right now that we know will be there after January 1st is Desi.
Yeah.
So I just want to acknowledge that in our deliberations, that I do feel like his voice deserves a little more weight and maybe it won't be necessary, but that's my feeling anyway. Or I at the very least wanted to name that fact as the only person who is not up for election or moving on.
Right. But whoever this is has to run again in any case. So that
Sure.
We're really only appointing for the next 6 months. It's entirely possible that whoever we appoint could lose the election.
It's true. But we also know that-
Unlikely, given the candidates, but
Right, and we know that incumbency does grant certain privileges. Granted, it is a very short incumbency, so I don't know that it's a huge privilege, but yeah. You haven't said anything yet. All the 3 of us have said.
Well, okay, I'll jump in. I agree absolutely that I hope all 3 are on the ballot in November. I think the city would be well served by all of them. I think it was nice to meet Mr. Freeman. He's the one I had not met before, and I hope to meet him again in person soon. Was not familiar with I didn't realize, I guess I saw that he was appointed to Arts Committee when we did that, but I wasn't part of those interviews, so I didn't have the chance to meet him then. I've met Rebecca recently, and she's a powerhouse. She is a powerhouse. I think she brings a lot of great stuff and a lot of insight just from her work at the county level. And I think both of them would be great contributing members to this council. But I guess the person who stands sort of above for their history of engagement in the city is Adam to me. And he's been engaged at the Planning Commission, at the Linwood NDA, and with the Veterans Council and, in other ways outside of just City of Milwaukie. I think he brings an interesting diversity to the council, ethnic and religious diversity, also the veterans aspect of his service. We haven't had a veteran on here in my tenure. So I think that's also, I liked his exposure to, mental health issues. I do think that's well, and I will say, I think all of them gave great answers about what our challenges are and what we need to do, you know, what our challenges are and what are the big issues facing us. But I think his exposure to mental health issues through his veterans work, some of the, we got testimonials on behalf of all three candidates, but one of his really called out his heart and his, you know, his stopping to really check on someone who was distressed in the community and, you know, going out of his way to, you know, not just paying lip service, I guess, to the houselessness and the underrepresented problem, but really stopping to check on somebody's well-being. So I think that's where I sit. Yeah.
I would say I would agree with that. I really heard Adam's passion and his answer to question number 3. You know, just listening to him talk. But I also know that, you know, Josh's background with the land use stuff is also valuable. He's been a part of planning Juneteenth here in Milwaukie for the past 2 years that we've done it, and his work on the Arts Council. But you know, who stands out to me is Rebecca. I mean, I know she's got experience in government, but like these answers were spot on. Like talking about the systemic stuff and making sure that when we're talking about equity, it's just embedded in everything. Like every answer she gave, it was embedded. Equity was embedded in each and every answer. And, you know, I can't, you know, once again, this is a good problem to have, but I can't in good consciousness think that Rebecca isn't the one that should be put on this council, because she's thought out and it was just really good.
I will follow suit in saying, yes, this is a good problem to have. I will also say it is a horrible problem to experience, and I'm going to whine about that just a little bit. But sincerely, I give my gratitude and thanks to all three of you for taking the time to apply, for being interested, for being the people you are. It speaks volumes about this community that we have such wonderful people come out of the woodwork to step up like this. So a very sincere thanks to all of you. And I agree that y'all better be on the ballot, because otherwise I'm going to be real sad. And I'm probably going to come find you. I know where Scott's office is. We'll take you there. And I have to say, and this isn't just me acceding to Desi, because I feel like he has added weight. Rebecca's answers did kind of blow me out of the water, in that it is, you know, I'm thinking about the experience of someone stepping in and hitting the ground running and serving for the next 6 months, and going, that's the person who has the understanding of the scope of the problems we face and the detail-oriented and systems-level thinking that will provide her the platform to be the best teammate in this specific circumstance. Not that Josh or Adam wouldn't be amazing teammates, but just looking at this specific situation. I think that's a really valuable asset that she brings that is distinguishing to me of the three.
Yeah, this is, I've been obviously thinking about this since we saw the original applications, and I had an opportunity to meet with all three of them at various times before this, only once with Josh. He was newer to me. And yeah, I'm sitting here feeling like I wish we could appoint all three. Obviously, we can't do that. And I was very impressed with Rebecca's answers to all the questions, but I was equally impressed. I have to say, with Adam's, I mean, there's, we talk about bringing a variety of lived experiences to this work. And beyond the city work that we all do, the making decisions around housing and around climate and around transportation and planning and all the things that we get to actually make decisions on. And then there's the level of stuff that is to some degree out of our hands, but we can advocate for. And we can be powerful leaders. And I think Milwaukie has stepped into that role in a great way over the last several years. And I think, the lived experience that Adam has of being a young man that saw combat and had the damage done to him that was done to him, and having come through that, as well as his lived experience as a Muslim American, brings something new to this dais that we don't have. And his understanding of the lack of mental health care that's available to everyone, not just vets, in this state. I do believe that that's going to be a big push statewide. Within the next couple of years, I honestly do. And I think having a person on council that can make that argument from a personal, experiential standpoint is going to be super powerful. I also think, much to your point of Rebecca's ability to hit the ground running because of her background in county government, which I totally agree with. I think Adam has that same opportunity because, everything that comes to this council, not everything, 70% of the hard things that come to this council first went through the Planning Commission. So everything we see for the next 6 months is the stuff that the Planning Commission has been spending the last 6 months on. So to that degree, he's going to be able to hit the ground running because he's actually probably seen the packets that we are yet to see and done that work. Maybe I haven't overblown respect for the Planning Commission because I spent some time on it and I know how hard that work is. In some ways, it's more detail oriented and more in depth than what council gets the opportunity to do often. And I think it's invaluable. It's been, I think part of the reason this council has been so effective on such big issues is that a majority of council over the last several years, has had some time on the Planning Commission. And I think that's important. I think it's a big deal. So while I am utterly torn here, I am leaning towards Adam as well. I think he brings more in this moment that we don't have, and again, hits the ground running due to the work he's already been doing on the Planning Commission. So there we are at a 2-2 tie, which was the worst possible outcome.
But can I point out that you're talking about bias now, right? Because someone has to be part of Planning Commission.
No.
So that, but what you just said,
to just that it brings them a lot of.
but you're putting your bias in there. Do you understand? Like, if we're talking about communities that are historically underrepresented, you're not going to get people who have participated in those kind of things. So I'm just asking that you take out your thinking on someone being a part of Planning Commission and look at everyone as no Planning Commission experience, and we're judging them on what they said, what they filled out. I'm just having a problem with your line of thinking that just because somebody participated in Planning Commission, they're more prepared. That's not always the case. And I just would like for that line of thinking maybe to be put to the side, and let's judge them on their answers that they gave and not what they've done or being a part of Planning Committee.
Well, that's not what I've heard from you guys. I've heard, that Rebecca's work with the county equips her to hit the ground running. Why is that different than Planning Commission? We look at all their things that equip them to help who equips each one, in different ways.
Can I try something?
Yeah.
So I think there's maybe two different things here, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but this is some of my thinking about this. From Josh, I heard a fair amount of land use experience. I mean, preparing the briefs for LUBA hearings is no small thing at the county level. I think he gets it. I think he understands a lot of the planning, a lot of the work that the Planning Commission does. I think he understands on a pretty deep level. And I think the other thing that I know about people stepping into leadership roles is that women and Black and brown people tend to have to be asked to serve. They don't necessarily feel like they can be at a table like this. So I think that's what I'm hearing and what you're saying, Councilor Nicodemus, is maybe take a little bit of a step back from thinking about who's applied for Planning Commission and who's been on Planning Commission, and instead look at the experience that they're bringing to the table. Not that it's about, ignoring what people have done in their workplace, but broaden your scope a little. Does that make sense?
Was that what you were?
Well, I think that's right. You don't look just at Planning Commission, but I don't see why Planning Commission is a different factor than you worked for the county, you worked for,
Done paralegal work for LUBA.
Yeah, right.
It's people's lived experiences and the time they've put in on whatever, right, is a factor for me. For me, what people do is more important than what they say. Because you can say a lot of stuff, right? And people do all the time. It's what you do in the end that is, in my opinion, the measure of a person. And I recognize that people who aren't privileged have a harder time getting the opportunities to do things. But in this particular instance, we have three people who would be all three put into those categories, right? We have a woman, we have an Iranian, and we have a Black man. So none of them has more from that standpoint, opportunity to have done things than the others. I think they're maybe, but it's relative, right? It's within the span of folks who have been historically kept from participating.
I guess, I mean, the other thing to me is frankly, when all other things are equal, I'm going to put more weight in what you've done in the city of Milwaukie. I hope us having this conversation gets more people to apply for planning commission. I hope we have a good list from the interviews we all just did. I hope, I do know from some of the interviews I did, we will have more diversity on some of our boards and commissions. But when all things are equal, somebody's history in Milwaukie and their activities in Milwaukie are going to weigh more for me than things they did elsewhere.
All right, let's see. Let's think about another way that we can sort of break this conversation open and
Well, I mean, I heard more solutions to problems from Rebecca. And she gave really good ideas about how we as a council, we as a city can really change what's happening here.
And I do hear absolutely what you're saying about mental health and planning commission. I'm not sure that we have how much planning commission related work we have in the next 6 months. That's kind of an open question for me. Mental health is critical, absolutely. I will reiterate that if all of these candidates don't run in November, I'm going to be real mad at them. So when I'm thinking about what's happening in the next 6 months, and thinking realistically, thinking about what the city council can do about mental health in the next 6 months, it does not rise to the top of the list of things that we have to address. Do you know what I'm, does that
Well,
make
there's
sense?
a couple things that'll be happening in the next 6 months. I mean, one is we will presumably be doing some hiring of some mental health staff.
But we don't do the hiring.
Well, the city will, but we will have some role in sort of what their functions are or what their priorities are.
I don't think that's true. I think that's a staff level decision. We make decisions about the budget and we provide policy direction around, yes, this is something we want to see, but we do not write job descriptions. We do not describe the work that these people will be doing. We do not.
Well, I could be wrong, but I suspect that we will be consulted to some degree on that, on what the, on how the police force intends to use the new staffing. But apart from that, there's also a new legislative session and the gear up to the LOC process and what's happening. I mean, I do think the recent events with guns is going to put, all the recent shootings are going to put mental health back on the forefront, and the gear up for prioritizing bills and getting ready for bills and looking at bills will start before November.
No, we usually don't have that discussion on the dais until January.
We don't, but we participate with LOC.
Sure, and that's one vote where we cast, but it's a very small role that we play in that. I'm not saying it's not important, but in terms of needing expertise on the council for that conversation, I don't see it.
Oh, I see it.
Again, this is not, please run. I'm not arguing against you, Adam. This is my evaluation.
It's a horrible situation to do this in front of the three of you.
It really is.
Never going to get to talk to them again.
Thank you, Josh, for not being in the room. It's a kindness you have done.
He turned his camera on.
Thanks. Me and my big mouth.
No, I think Lisa's right there. I'm already having those conversations both with legislators, with the MMC. We are gearing up, and mental health is definitely a top priority amongst, at least for some legislators and for the MMC.
That's great. And I'm glad you are at that table. How is having a city councilor who has a lived experience in mental health going to push that conversation further? This is an honest question. I'm not trying to be difficult here.
No, I mean, I suppose I can consult with citizen Adam just as well as I could consult with Counselor Adam.
You don't foresee meetings where anybody but the mayor would be participating?
Before January, which is her point.
There might be conversations at C4, which I've
Right.
been part of, will continue to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, probably not unless this fall LOC gets their act together and actually does something. Well, isn't LOC in the fall?
Yeah,
LOC.
we'll vote on that in October at the meeting, the LOC meeting. I think, or do we vote in August? Do we vote in August? Anyway, it's somewhere in there.
The list of things, the priorities.
Yeah, the legislative priorities. And I don't know,
Can't remember what time of year that comes.
well, those have already been forwarded from the committees
Right,
because E&E did theirs.
right.
So,
Yeah, so
and they're down
potentially,
staff, so
Yeah.
it may be later.
I mean, that's a point, that it's, that it could be January. Before we need people to be able to testify to legislature. Flip a coin?
Sounds good.
Yeah, the part that makes me feel really good is that, whenever there's this big of an opportunity for change on council, it's scary, right? Because it's just like, and it makes me feel really good that these are the people that are excited about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, we'll have a solid council.
You know where we took that question off about would you be interested in serving just a partial term and wouldn't run in November? I think I'm starting to understand why that question is useful.
Well,
On the
I
application.
remember the genesis of that question way back, but
I mean, not that it changes anything about these three. It's just, I'm just making conversation. I don't know what to do.
I mean, they all have children, they're all parents. They're all engaged with,
which is great.
yeah, which is awesome. They all recognized, the housing challenges, the equity goals, the climate goals. I do think in some ways Rebecca has, just from the nature of her work, and it is reflected in her answer, she has a more realistic grasp of, what the role of cities is versus counties and sort of what's been tried in some areas and, what hasn't. So, I think she'll be a great addition to council whenever she is on council, but I guess I still go back to, Adam's, the diversity that Adam brings and the passion. The fact that he changed, he does have, it's interesting that he put it as a calling, because I knew some of the things he said today, but I did not know about his service really, or, some of the other things he talked about. And, that he felt a calling after 9/11, and that he felt a calling again in 2020. Yeah.
Well, I was joking about flipping a coin before. Now I'm beginning to get serious about it. Yeah, either one of them would be outstanding. Right? So.
And there's a good possibility all three of them will be on council next year.
Yeah.
That I'm not worried about.
Well, I've already announced that I will defer somewhat, not entirely, but we have no bad decisions in front of us, so.
Oh,
So here, I'm tossing the coin to you.
Oh.
Our judge is going to fall asleep in the back. I'll always sit here being quiet. Good.
Scott, am I remembering correctly that in the event of a tie, at least for mayor, it goes on a coin toss? I know that's a fact for some city, and I can't remember if ours was one of the cities.
Yeah, or Wilsonville.
It's Wilsonville that has that?
I think the magic number we're looking for is 3.
Oh, thank you for that. So much easier now.
4 will also.
Very helpful. Thank you for doing that hard math for us.
All right, how about this? Remind us in the next 6 months, what are our big lifts? Somebody who's got that.
Do you want to try? Okay, so we have, we'll be talking about climate and the fee associated with the climate programming. We've got the budget to adopt. We will be talking about houselessness at a couple of meetings. We have some equity work. The adoption of the new purchasing code is coming up in the next meeting or in 2 meetings. Sparrow Street is on there, but that's still just a next step. So that's not a permanent decision. City Hall? City Hall, those discussions will namely be about what the chambers looks like for you all. So you'll be weighing in on that in the next couple meetings. I think those are the big things. Oh, TSP Advisory Committee will get appointed. Parks, and more parks.
Dealing with the county.
Well, and dealing with our own, our own master planning.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of aspects to parks.
Yeah. Okay, that didn't help.
Yeah, that just
Nothing
made me
on
think, well, then
hubs?
Josh would be great.
I did the same thing.
We'll start a conversation on hubs, but that's really starting late in the year and it'll be a full year process. So it'll probably be November, December where it starts, but the work will happen under the new council.
Will we start the TSP before the end of the year?
The appointment process will take place in September. So the committee will be formed in September. We'll probably start that in November is my guess.
I heard we would have public meetings starting this summer, I believe.
Yep, nope.
Nope.
No, I mean, just looking, Vera's been the person who's in charge of that. And so we've had her in here doing other things lately. Well, thanks. Thanks for
Sorry, I
nothing.
couldn't help at all.
I have gotten a number of questions about whether or not I can make this decision. I cannot, for anyone watching online.
There's always arm wrestling.
I do play this. Well, I can sit here quietly longer than pretty much anyone in this room. I can basically guarantee, because I have a lot of practice at it.
The Quaker
You're right.
meeting.
Right. I have a lifetime of practice doing this, what we're doing right now. I do believe in each of these 3 individuals. I continue to believe that that Rebecca would serve us best, given this unique situation we're in with the next 6 months. Honestly, thinking about all the parks work we may have coming up and thinking about master planning, I think that really does make me think, and Josh really would be very strong. I don't hear a lot of movement out of either of you, really. So
But see, if you changed your vote to Josh, then it's solved. Because then it's a 2-1-1.
No, we need three.
still need three.
We need three.
Sorry.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the action of 3.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm sorry. You thought you had the loophole. So I am easy with appointing Adam at this point. When I say that making a public commitment to Josh and to Rebecca to fully support both of you getting elected. And may every council be so lucky as to have such a difficult decision in the future. Is that okay with?
I was literally thinking of, do I have a coin in my pocket? I was going to go there. I was honest to God, so.
That just
saved me
gets
from
us
that.
news coverage. Not necessarily in a good way.
No. All righty. Thank you.
So,
So we'll need a motion.
yep. You ready for a
I'm ready
motion?
for a motion.
I move to appoint Adam Khosroabadi to the vacant council position 1 on an interim basis until the November 8th, 2022 special election results are certified.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to appoint Adam Khosroabadi to the vacant council position 1 on an interim basis until the November 8th, 2022 special election results are certified. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
The motion passes 3-1.
And if you can give us just like a minute to get ourselves organized, we'll read and start with this.
So,
Scene change.
yeah, seems
Thank
we'll
you to
take
Josh
a couple of
and
minutes. Yeah,
Rebecca, for sure, for coming, for all you put into your applications, and
excellent work, literally all 3 of you. And I will agree with Councilor Heisey and my commitment to supporting as well
Great.
in the election.
We're gonna have, you'll get a copy of these and this is a copy if you don't mind. 2 different. Same on this one.
and Gabriella will go into labor tonight, and you'll have,
Too early. Too early. Oh,
Too early.
pardon?
So
I do for another month.
You still got
Oh, is it that long? Oh, okay.
That's what I was thinking.
For cameras, we were thinking, it doesn't seem right in the middle, but the camera angles are better if you're in the middle. So if you'd like to stand over there.
Wait, 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 this way?
If you're standing here, you're fine. The camera
Oh.
there, here, or right here too.
Where's makeup?
I'm going to do the repeat after me, but
Feel free to stand up and do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
whenever.
Oh.
If you'll just repeat after me, after raise your right hand. I, Adam Khosroabadi,
I, Adam Khosroabadi,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the state of Oregon,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the state of Oregon,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Milwaukie,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Milwaukie,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
that I will faithfully and
impartially
impartially discharge the duties
of Yep. City councillor.
City councilor.
Yep. It says of title of sworn position.
City councilor.
That's what I thought. Of city councillor of the city of Milwaukie
City councilor of the city of Milwaukie
in the county of Clackamas,
in the county of Clackamas,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
or according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Just to
My hands a
have
little.
you.
Thank you so much.
So Councilor Khosroabadi, would you like to come take a seat? The dais
For our final motion.
for our final motion?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you so much.
congratulations.
Thank you all.
Congratulations.
For the opportunity and for the trust. I appreciate it.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
A second.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. All the-